This is a broken BMW F30, and today we will try to repair it and put this car back on the road. This BMW died and left the previous owner stranded, and after having the workshop troubleshoot it, he found out that the repair is way too expensive. So then he did the only logical thing and traded the car in, and after a while this car popped up for sale, and we of course bought it. This 320d is an incredibly nice example. This is what they call a modern line BMW with full 360 cameras, pretty nice interior with an automatic gearbox, and it's super low mileage. The battery is dead, so you can't really check it right now. The body is in super good state. I'm not even sure if I can find a single dent or scratch on the body. The cover is somewhere inside the car, but yeah, not a single dent, I think. As you guys already see, this F30 has the N47 diesel engine, and it doesn't start. And no, the timing chains are not broken. So when we bought the car, this sensor was already out. And some of you guys probably already understand, but this car has a broken high pressure fuel pump. And when that happens, it sends metal shavings through all of the fuel system. So now we need to clean all of it, and we need to replace the high pressure fuel pump, the rail, injectors, metal lines, and you can clean the tank and the plastic lines that goes all the way back to the tank. So now I guess we'll need to get this car inside and start stripping it down. Damn. Now I need to somehow put this car inside alone. If you have to push something inside on your own, use physics to your advantage. Put a breaker bar on a lug nut. I'm not sure what is that sound. Ticking as crazy. Right now I do have the automatic gearbox in the manual mode. So I put it in neutral, the manual way. So when we bought the car, we was gonna put it on the trailer and we couldn't get into manual, so I had to lift the car up and crawl under it. Okay, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do the last part. I guess easier than I expected. How much did we pay for the car? Is 80,000 Norwegian krones. So now the question is, how much is it gonna cost to fix it? To find that out, we need to start working on it and fixing it. First thing, I definitely want to put it on the charger. Let's see if I can open the trunk. Yes, look at this thing. 132,000 kilometers. That's crazy. That is actually crazy. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I was gonna check how much fuel there is in the tank. No! No! There's the full freaking tank of diesel. So the battery were only 5 volts, but after disconnecting the battery from the car, it immediately jumped up to 910. So we'll see, maybe it's gonna charge. When the high pressure pump broke, it sent a bunch of shavings to the injectors, and then also by the return lines it came back to the tank. So the whole system is full of shavings, including the tank. So all of that 50-60 liters that is in the tank right now of diesel, it is garbage. You can't use it. You could probably filter it, I guess use it in a tractor or something like that. We need to drain all of it, and I'm not gonna use it. I don't want to risk breaking the new fuel system. I guess they thought it was low on fuel and they filled up a full tank, something like that. Here I have a vacuum pump that I bought in my first YouTube video. So now I need to use 2 screwdrivers up and down in order to open the hole and shove the pipe down. Doesn't seem to be working, so I guess we will need to do it by the fuel pumps. Okay. Now we need to remove the manifold, and in order to do that we need to undo all these cables so we can move all this thing to the side. So camshaft position sensor was loose, there was no bolt for it, so that's weird. I'm guessing they thought that the timing chain broke when they inspected the car, so they removed it to inspect if the engine was turning over, I'm guessing. Okay. Okay, now I will release the rail. The manifold then unclips. Yes. Okay, that was pretty nice. All the spark flaps look decent. Okay, before we start with the fuel system, I want to see if the injectors are not seized. Okay, not seized. Also not seized. Not seized. Also not seized. Perfect. Now we need to start working on actually removing the whole high pressure fuel pump that sits right here. We can move these cables to the side at least. Firstly, the pipe. So basically pipes like this, they are garbage, they're full of shavings. So on the back of the high pressure fuel pump and the back of the engine, there is a cap that you need to loosen and remove in order to release the high pressure fuel pump sprocket that holds the timing from its place. There you go, and that's the cap that holds the hole plugged off. So then you need a special toolkit, just like this one for an N47 engine. This is the timing tool, we don't need that. The only thing we need is this tool right here. This thing is what is gonna separate the high pressure fuel pump from the sprocket, and also this socket is what's gonna hold it in place. So since I have a few spare engines, I can show you guys how it works. This is the way the engine sits in the car right now. This is the back of it, there's no cover on it right now. This is the hole that the little cap that we removed is covering. And you can see this is the sprocket for the timing chains. If we just undid the bolt and somehow got it loosened, the timing is gonna be gone. So that's what this tool here is for. So that thing, it screws into the high pressure fuel pump sprocket, just like that. And that is what is gonna hold it in place. And at the same time, when you will put it all the way down, you will release the middle bolt on the shaft of the high pressure fuel pump. And while releasing it, it's gonna get seated against the inner lip here, this way. It's gonna push the sprocket outwards, and that's gonna separate the sprocket from the high pressure fuel pump. I don't know if it makes sense. In my head it does make sense. I'm not sure if it does in yours. But now I will use this bit inside it to put it in and tighten it down, and then I will remove this thing, so only this is left inside the sprocket. Yeah, so now I just snugged it down. Then I'm removing this part of the tool, and the sprocket middle bolt is a hex bolt, like this. And I will try to release it. Okay, so it seems that the engine is just turning over. That's why I put a nut on the vibration damper on the crankshaft. I mean a socket on the vibration damper bolt, and I will counter hold it with this breaker bar. Now I'm opening the bolt all the way until it starts touching the tool. So now I opened up the bolt and now it's tight again. Now I need to remove the high pressure fuel pump screws from the side and top. So now I will remove the 3 bolts here and remove this little bracket. Then there is 1 bolt here, 1 on top. So now I'm releasing the middle bolt. Yes! Done! And now you can see the shavings inside here. So that's all shavings and this is garbage. So then this here is how it looks. You can see the sprocket inside and that is completely tight and in place, and the bolt is still inside there, and that's how much space we have. Since we have the high pressure fuel pump removed, we can remove all these cables, or not cables, I mean lines. And the lines are for the high pressure fuel pump. So there is a sensor on the lines that I do need to disconnect like that. So then there's 2 quick disconnect connectors, just like that. This, all cars wet now. So now all this is also garbage, theoretically, or actually you could probably wash them and it'll be fine, but that down there you can see is the supply line and the other one is return. These solid lines that go all the way back to the tank, we're not gonna replace them, but this is gonna get replaced. In the front, we have removed everything that we need, and now we need to pull out the pumps from the tank. But technically, if there's more than a half tank of fuel, if you pull the pump out from under the rear seat, it's gonna start going everywhere. So we need to somehow remove some of it so that when we pull it out, it's not gonna end up leaking 30 liters all over the floor. So now I connected up the pump to the fuel supply line. The blue one is supply and the black one is return. Yes, I'm not gonna film it. I will repeat this step as long as it's gonna be possible, and then we will start pulling the fuel pumps. Yeah, so it seems now that we have reached the point where it doesn't pick up anymore. I have pulled out almost 30 liters, so it is around half of the tank. Before we start removing the fuel pumps and lifting the car up, I am gonna remove the oil filter because we will replace the oil. Such a small filter, holy cow. Yeah, filter is squeaky clean. Not a single sign of metal, debris, anything. Perfect. There's only 1 hole here. Okay. I need to give it a good okay. There's a lot of shavings. But the problem is there's no hole in the other side. And I know there used to be holes on E90s and stuff, so I need to do some Googling right now. I have done this job on E90s before, and E90s have the thing that has the holes here and in the passenger side. So that makes it able for you to clean them without removing it. You can put your hand inside there and reach everywhere with brake cleaner, with drag, vacuum it out and stuff like this. However, F30, it only has 1 access hole through the one side. And I talked to some people, many people clean them without removing the tank from the car. They put fuel in it, cleaner or something like that. Even petrol, I have heard. You lift the car to one side, clean it out, other side, clean it out, and repeat it multiple times, and it's good enough. Because if there's anything left, the filter is gonna pick it up. But I did check under, and it's not too much work to remove it. You just need to drop the exhaust under the prop shaft and then just basically drop it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I feel more confident in that. We can remove it, we can put a bunch of brake cleaner in it, flush it out, and that makes me more comfortable with doing that. If you compare this car to E90, for example, it has these plastic things everywhere instead of screws. Now we need to release the prop shaft. I was thinking maybe it's possible if we just release it and let it hang here. Okay. Disconnect the filler neck. That was an annoying job. I also want to wash the outside so it's not that dirty. Now I have flushed it out with water, simple water, and then I vacuumed out everything that was there. Then here I have brake cleaner. This side of the tank I'm not worried about because I will reach out and I can reach anywhere with a rag and dry everything out, remove everything. This side is the one that I'm most certain about. Now, as all of the brake cleaner was in the top, I tried to shake it around so all the dirt gets loose. Then I quickly flip it so all the dirt falls on this side. On this side we will remove it manually, vacuum it and stuff like that. And now to basically test it, I'll add some diesel. And then we will shake it around on the other end and then quickly flip it again and then see if there is any dirt, any metal or something floating in the bottom. Yeah, we'll repeat this step 4 or 5 times more and yeah, we will see then. Now the tank is clean. I flushed the tank totally, probably like 10 times, multiple times with brake cleaner, then with diesel, and then with brake cleaner again. Here I have a clean brand new box, and here is the pump. Electric connector plugs in up here. Clean off the seating surface. Like that. I hope it doesn't leak because we didn't replace the gasket because I didn't have it. This thing here I think is some kind of breather. The tank definitely clean enough. Probably would have worked if we clean it in the car. Now before we start assembling, these 2 pipes are the pipes that go all the way to the front and they go all the way to the fuel filter back here. So I will disconnect the filter, remove it, and I will blow these lines out and wash them out with a bunch of brake cleaner, compressed air, and do it multiple times as well to remove anything, if there's anything left. I have the fuel filter. It's exactly the same, yes. Clean out the line and clean out the fuel heater or what it is. I would say this pipe is actually the most important one that you have to get the cleanest out of all of them. Because this pipe is the only pipe that is not gonna get filtered before going to the engine. Because all the other pipes in the engine bay we are replacing. And this is the only pipe that we are reusing that is not gonna get filtered. the little gasket in place. This thing on. And we put it on the new filter. Now we can just put it on the car so it doesn't get contaminated and it stays where it's supposed to be. Then push the blue pipe up. This thing. Now the filter is in, I can start putting in the whole diesel tank. In fact, that was easier than I expected. So I double checked, everything at the top is tight and good. Now I just want to add some diesel into the tank to see if it is not leaking from the joints and stuff like that. Now this is the clean diesel that I picked up. So now we have cleaned the tank, cleaned the lines, and all the car is ready for us to reinstall the high pressure fuel pump, the front lines, the injectors, stuff like that. Here I have the parts needed. So for high pressure fuel pump, for injectors, the metal lines, the rubber lines in the engine bay, I paid 5,000 crowns. In Norway, there's no chance to find fuel system pack like that for this price. Not a chance. High pressure fuel pump. High pressure lines, the rail, and 4 injectors. Let's go ahead and put it back on the car. Right here I have the bad pump, and you can see all the metal shavings inside here. And here I have the new pump, and I did remove the sensor to inspect it. Completely clean. You can see this is the old one and this is the new one. And when I pulled it off, the notch in the timing chain sprocket has to line up with the new pump. So I mean, I need to turn the shaft. So now the notch is in the exact position for it to line up on the notch on the timing chain sprocket. You guys wouldn't realize this happens way too often with people who replace high pressure fuel pumps. Super common. That's why you have to be 100% sure that it is exactly the same. You can even go the extra length and mark an extra space, so if it moves you know that it's exactly the same. This is super common for people. Then they put it on and then the spline doesn't align, then they tighten the bolt, the sprocket is loose, the sprocket is sideways, they start the car, everything is rattling, you break the chain guides, stuff like that. You can see inside, that's the bolt that is loose right now. And that there is the spline in the sprocket that you have to align. Not easy to show when there's so many things in the way and stuff. Right here there is an O-ring, so I will lube it up so it slides in easier and I can tell that everything is lined up properly. That seemed a bit too easy, so I will pull the pump slightly back to see if my marking still is in the same place. Yep. I slightly tightened down the sprocket, and now I just popped the whole high pressure fuel pump in place. tight, at least for now, so we can put bolts in for the whole housing. Time for the lines. Now I will plug in. Both of the lines at the bottom are connected, the ones that go back to the fuel tank. Good. Now let's finally pull out the injectors that are garbage. I cleaned out the injector holes, so all the holes are perfectly clean and the seating surface is perfect for brand new copper washers for the injectors. The washer. We will need to coat them as well, even though some people say you don't. I don't know. I don't see different on diesels, but if you can, why not? Just do it. Then the bracket and the bolt. I'm not gonna tighten the pipes yet, but I'm just tightening down the injectors itself. I realized there's one more thing that I still haven't tightened down. That is the sprocket on the high pressure fuel pump. I think it's torqued around 60 if I remember correctly, but you anyway can't fit a torque wrench in here. Okay, now we'll take the special tool again and I'll remove the other side of the special tool that is in the block currently from the back, so I'll remove it. And the tool is out. Then I'm putting in the cap from the back. The problem with this engine in this car, and probably generally in newer cars like F10, F30, stuff like that, the engine base and the cars are big, so the engines are so small, and when you need to reach, let's say like this, to the back of the engine, you have to basically stand on the engine in the engine bay. Okay, that's good. We have a lot of progress. Put the ECU down. A little mess right now, but here is the manifold. I pressure washed it. It was super bad. Not perfect, but a lot better. As well as these pipes here, they were full of grime and stuff. Because this car is all original, it has still the DPF, it's not tuned. I don't want to remove the surf flaps. They do look okay, they're not cracked and stuff, but on the newer N47 engines, such as F series, like this one, you can remove the surf flaps itself, the whole unit, which you can't do on the earlier N47 engines. So that's why I bought this new surf flaps. Then there's also this sensor here. Done. The manifold was a little bit fiddly, so everything I think is connected and I didn't forget anything. Move the line out of the way. Now it's the matter of plugging everything in. Now I installed a brand new oil filter. I added 5.2 liter of 5W30 oil. And now I just want to start bleeding, or actually first I need to connect the battery. I did charge the battery for a long time, so now it does seem to have 12 volts. Now I started the bleeding procedure. Never mind. I need to go grab more fuel. Apparently you need more than 20 liters in the tank for it to bleed properly. We're back. Diesel is everywhere. Fuel system bleeding. Okay, now I can hear. I mean, I guess it makes sense because every single pipe was empty of fuel. No fuel anywhere. Before we start the engine, I do want to put on the filter. Okay, so it has a KN filter. I can't be bothered to clean it right now, so I'm just installing the new filter that I got. How does this? That's around correct. Let's try to fire it up. The battery is pretty low probably. Hey! Let's go! Okay. So, for now, it's okay, we'll need to wash everything, but that's the cabin filter. And here's the new one. One more thing, I had to tighten the left side handbrake. It was not working at all on this wheel, and I thought the pads were worn, or I mean the shoes, but I just used a screwdriver and tightened it in here. Can't really show, but there's a little sprocket there that you just turn, and you tighten it until it's fully locked, the brake disc, and then you undo 1 or 2 clicks so it's dragging. And now both of the sides are almost similar, so I think that's gonna be good now. I know it's been such a long time and I still haven't bought the proper extractor vacuum, but I did get a attachment. I Now, the beautiful clean floor mats, it just makes such a difference when the floor mats are at least somewhat cleaner. So now I have driven the car for a bit, drives perfect almost, and I had it inspected and it did not pass. So there's a few things we need to fix. The biggest thing, both of the rear wheel bearings, one is making sound, other one has a little shake in it. Then the handbrake on this side, even though I tightened it, there's something wrong probably. And front left caliper is not seized, but it's breaking all the time. So we'll need to rebuild one of the caliper. I want to of course start with the hardest thing, the biggest job, which is wheel bearings. But the problem is, in the parts catalog there are two different bearings. One is 75 millimeters in diameter, one is 85. Right now I only got my hands on this one. Yeah, so this bearing is the 85 millimeter bearing. So I'm not sure if they're gonna fit, so I need to firstly check. Damn. Haha. No wonder the freaking handbrake wasn't working. There's no more handbrake shoes. I mean the material on the pads left. So usually we would just undo the bolts on the drive shaft and remove the drive shaft. But however, on F30 apparently there is no, what can I say, screws on the drive shaft. It is just straight up slotted into the differential. Usually there's supposed to be screws all the way around right here, but here's not. So it's not near as easy to remove the drive shaft. I need to go and do some googling on how BMW says this repair is supposed to be done. After doing some research, I found out the best way is probably to just undo this arm, and this arm from the knuckle. And then I think we will be able to tilt the knuckle and pull the drive shaft out and to the side. But firstly, I want to remove the hub from the bearing and separate the bearing, because we are going to reuse the hub. And for that I have this slide hammer kit. So we will put this bit onto the hub and we will hammer it off. Let's give it some smacks, because this hammer is big, but it's sometimes, if the hub is seized good, it can be not as easy. Ah, your butt. Now it's out. This was absolutely nuts. We can see that the outer race of the bearing is still in here, but we'll do that later, because we need to undo the top bolts on the control arms to drop the whole knuckle and move the drive shaft out and to the side. We also did the same on this side, but now I just want to make the hubs ready. The new bearings do not contain the hubs to what the wheel bolts onto, this thing. When we hammered it off with the slide hammer, to remove these things with the slide hammer took probably like 4 hours of constant fire with this torch and constant hammering, but eventually it did give up. For some reason it's super hard on an F30. The E91s, I have never had that much problem. with hammering it out. So I'm not even sure what's the reason for that. So now this out race, as we can see, this is not supposed to be on the hub. This is from the bearing that's still stuck on. The way to remove it, I use a angle grinder and cut it sideways. So you need to make a cut and hammer it. So now we take a chisel, put it on the corner and give it a good old smack. Yeah, now we can see the whole thing is loose, and then you just hammer it off. You can see here I accidentally cut too deep, so there's a little hole now in the hub. That doesn't do absolutely anything because the new bearing only slides over it. You press it on with a press. There's absolutely no problem with that. Now I can see why the handbrake was not working. I do have all new hardware. Bruh, even this thing is freaking seized. I checked the bearings and they were too big. So I have bought 85 millimeters and I need 75. Or I actually ordered both of them, just one of them haven't came yet. Now I'm just removing the C-clip that keeps the bearing in. Now as this is drying, I will go and do the same to the other side. Here I have new brake shoes together with the hardware. So onto the cable, the new shoes, put the adjuster on, which I lubed up. And then I put it onto cable little bracket. It seems that the hardware I picked up is slightly different, so I'll need to reuse the old lower spring, but that should be fine. Now I will remove the 3 arms. So now I undid the 3 arms and I managed to tilt the knuckle to the side and pull the drive shaft out and move it. And now I have this universal bushing tool, or actually it's a bearing tool. And then I will put the big bolt through from the back side with an adapter that fits exactly on the size of the bearing. Then I find the cup to the correct size of the outer hub diameter, and then just some random cups and stuff. Usually it's not as easy and you need to use a long breaker bar, but in this case I think from all the hammering that we did for such a long time, that's what made it loose. So here's the old bearing. Now I need to wait for the new bearings. As we're still waiting for the bearings, I want to pull off the caliper and rebuild it, because the front left one, this one, was like low-key seized, so it was breaking all the time. Oh yeah, I guess I feel it. So here I have a little rebuild kit with all new bushings, seals, stuff like that. Okay, let's compress the piston. Now I want to check that I am able to undo the bleeding nipple, just so we don't have problems to bleed the brakes after. So that's possible.
Okay. So the caliper cleaned up pretty good. So now I cleaned up the piston, cleaned up pretty nice. There was some rust here at the top that I tried to clean up, but the surface itself is pretty good. Now we can see after putting the piston in, it moves super easily and super good. First thing, I want to reinstall this grommet inside, or this seal that sits on the inside. There is some kind of lubricant that you get with the rebuild kit, so just loop the whole O-ring up. Then I want to put it inside the gap, just like that. This is what seals the fluid from leaking out. Now I want to put on this whole seal, firstly on the caliper. It's not easy, and you have to be careful to not damage the boot. I used a little chisel and I put it on the edge of the boot because there is like a metal ring, and I lightly hammered it on. Just be careful to not destroy the boot. So now I will put on the bleeding nipple. I cleaned up the same one. Okay, and now we need to put on or put in the piston itself. Now I'm adding silicone grease all the way to the piston and lubing it all up, as well as the inside. Now we need to put the outer lip of the rubber over the piston, so the last lip jumps in this groove. Well, it's pretty hard to do it, but the easiest way, you take compressor and you blow compressed air through the hole where the hose goes to. That puts pressure so the rubber opens up, and that makes it easier to put in the piston. Okay, now you can see the rubber is over, and now we just need to align the piston. Good. Lastly, I'm just replacing these rubber grommets. Done. Caliper is done. Now let's reinstall the caliper before all the brake fluid drains out. Hey! And then the little caps for the bolts in the back. Finally, I have got the freaking parts. Only took like 2 weeks for 2 bearings. This is the new bearing. You can see exactly the same size, and on one side, as we can see, there is this magnetic ring, and this is what works with the ABS sensor. So you have to have this magnetic ring if you have it on the old bearing. You can feel that it's magnetic with the screwdriver. Now you put the bearing in with the magnetic side looking outwards towards the differential. Slightly tapping the bearing in on the outer edge only. Don't hit it on the inner one, just so it gets going in straight. Then tool with the correct cups, and then the old bearing. That seems to be in good. Then the big C-clip. Then we need to press in the hub. So then I find a cup that fits exactly on the inner race diameter. So just like that. And then we put the bolt through the back, and we put the hub on. So then when it's around straight, you put the wrench in the back and you give it a good ooga dooga. Now I'll put
drive shaft. There you go. Then I am putting on the brake disc. Then I jacked up the suspension. And I'm just tightening the suspension with the suspension jacked up in the air on ride height. Because if we tighten the bolts while the suspension is hanging and then we put the car down, the suspension is gonna settle and all these bushings is gonna twist. Now, we're gonna tighten the bolts when the suspension is jacked up. We put the car down, it's gonna sit exactly as we tightened. And on with the brake caliper. We can see it still has a lot of meat on the pads. Then the little caliper bracket. And the last thing, some people are still gonna say, oh, the disc is rusty. There's not a lip, there's a very minimal lip. This is just surface rust and it wasn't vibrating, so I'm not gonna replace it. There's no need. There is a special procedure to tightening the handbrake. You have to actually loosen a tab on the handbrake itself inside, but stuff like that. But in my opinion, there's no need. The best way, to tighten it fully until it's fully locked. You can't turn it anymore. And then I undo like one click. The disc will be dragging, but since the shoe is new and the disc is slightly rusty on the inside, it's gonna wear and it's gonna be perfect. Yeah, but now I do need to bleed the front caliper that we rebuilt. So now we'll add around 20 psi of pressure. Now I just open the bleed screw. Now I got most of the air out and I will just compress the pedal. Now the pedal is hard as a rock. Now I will bleed it a bit more. Yeah, there was still a few bubbles. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's good. How much did this car cost? So buying the car, 80,000 Norwegian crowns. Fuel system kit, 4,500. Then other parts such as wheel bearings, all the filters, engine oil, brake shoes, 3,500 crowns. And then extra such as transport, registration tax, inspection tax, stuff like that, came out probably to 4,000. So total price for this car right now is around 92,000. So now I did manage to find place at a workshop. He did check over all my work and they approved it. They also had to adjust the headlights and the fog lights for some reason. They were badly adjusted. So now this thing is road legal for the next 2 years. And it started snowing yesterday. We did not have any snow and now there's a bunch of it. The car drives, you could say, perfect. There's nothing wrong, no faults on the iDrive. I actually think it looks pretty good with these wheels, with these winter wheels. So that is gonna be it for this video. I would have posted it sooner, but it took forever to get the bearings. Next video is a new car on the channel, which we have never had, so stay tuned. But this car is done, no more videos, driving flawlessly, there's no defects. Let's not make this video any longer than it already is. Thanks for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. Or no, wait.